real driving man. Was made famous because he was able to bore holes in the mountain at the time when they were trying to figure out if it was better for a man versus a machine to do this particular job and task. And he was known as the strongest man and the best at his particular job. And if you think about kind of the ways that we tend to focus ourselves, we tend to focus on our jobs. This is why this becomes important. So one of the, we certainly know the story, the man versus machine, he won. Now, what we often miss in that story is what happens at the end. So what does happen at the end?
He died.
Right, he dies on the tracks. And in some versions of the story, he's married and his wife is watching this happen. Some versions of the story, he actually has a son who's also sitting there watching. Why is all that important? Is because he was successful in his job. He was great at what he did. But because he focused more on his job and didn't take care of his health, he lost. Now we remember him positively because he was he was successful in that particular area. But part of what we're trying to figure out in the way that we think about Black men's health is how do you strike a better balance between the two? We know that being healthy is important. We know that working is important. We know that sacrificing for your loved ones, your family, friends, your church, your community are all things that are important. But how do you take care of your health in that time? So we have to, as Black men, we tend to focus on those things where we're serving others, where we're taking care of other responsibilities, other priorities, other purposes, and don't take care of ourselves while we do that. Part of the program I'm trying to bring to you is to help us figure out how we're going to create a better balance in our lives. I'm never going to say you should focus on your health more than you should your responsibilities to others. That's not biblical, I wouldn't think, but I'm not going to leave that to you. But if you think about what we're, if you think about the higher purpose that we have for being here, it's not to be healthy, it's to serve others. It is, I watched way too much TV and was watching a movie, and one of the quotes that struck me was, it said, the best thing we can do in life is be of some use. And if you think about what you're trying to do, and even, again, building on the faith in action, that you're trying to do things in your life that are going to help serve others. You leave a legacy of others that you're trying to actually serve. So part of the work that we're trying to do is do that. I start there because the work that we do in men's health, and particularly in Black men's health, is really about that premise. And the way that I tend to approach health is a little bit different, particularly than when you go to the doctor. When you go to the doctor, often the way that you tend to hear about health is, they're looking at things that are happening in your body internally. They're trying to see, what is your blood pressure, what is your blood sugar, all of these things going on internally in your body. Well, you can't feel those usually. You can't see that. You can't monitor that. What you do is, if I ask you how you're doing, you usually say fine, right? We usually say you're doing all right, do whatever. That's actually an assessment of your health and well-being. When people say to you, I'm doing all right, I'm doing okay, or they're not doing okay, one of the ways that men actually define health for themselves is how does your body just function? Can your body do what you're telling it to do? And the reasons we go to the doctor are not because your blood pressure is high, because this is whatever would happen, is because stuff stops functioning. The reason that we take care of our health and when we actually start to do it is usually when stuff breaks down. When you can't do what you're trying to do, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, all of those kinds of things. So we tend to treat our bodies like they're a tool to do things that we care about, to do things that are important to us, but don't actually take care of that tool unless it breaks down. So whereas sometimes people, compare the way that men think about cars to the way they think about their bodies. We'll do preventive maintenance on a car. You make sure that you take care of your car, but you won't necessarily make sure that you take care of your body. So again, what we're trying to build here is a culture and build on the culture that you have where you take care of your body as well as you take care of your car. as well as you take care of your family, as well as you take care of your children. We did a piece in about Father's Day a few years ago that was basically titled Fathers Care More basically for their children than they do for their own health. And again, that's not in one way of thinking, that's not a bad thing. You know, you want to sacrifice. You're on this earth to sacrifice for the next generation. But does your sacrifice have to be so much that you're sacrificing your health doing that? Can you strike a better balance in doing that? And that's what we want to do, is have that context where you're doing both. It's not a choice between taking care of your health and taking care of your other responsibilities. It's that you're doing both as best you can. And so part of Mighty Men is trying to build that piece in there. The other foundation of the work that we do is really about stress. And I think people underestimate how important stress is in your life and what it does to you and to your body.
Yes, sir.
And how people manage stress. So in one way of thinking, you could actually say that stress is the #1 killer of everybody, but particularly black men. And if you think about the ways that your body feels the stress of what you're trying to do and what you're fighting against, regardless of whether or not you actually acknowledge it. And you also will figure out that when you're under stress, you may do things a little differently than you did them before. So you may, one of the things that we study is when men get depressed, that we tend to respond differently and will open up in different ways than with women. So concretely what I mean is, if I ask men about, are they feeling sad and depressed? Even if they are, they may not be willing to admit that. But what I can do is, if I'm a little slick with you and I ask you, well, have you been a little more irritable lately? Have other people told you that you're a little short with them a little bit more lately? That you're getting angry with folks a little bit more. You're getting road rage a little bit more. You're more likely to say, well, yeah, maybe that's me. Maybe that's a little bit more me than sadness and depression. And it's because we tend to think of those things through a gendered lens. We tend to think of those things as feminine. They're not really, but the point is, I'm not trying to fight your ideas about what masculinity means. My point is that we have to recognize that men are often depressed or need help in ways that we don't tend to want to admit. Amen. And that we don't ever get the help that we need. Right. Even though women are diagnosed with depression at twice the rate of men, the fact that men have higher rates of substance use, suicide, and other things like that suggests that there's something not being captured in the way that we deal with men. And that men are not getting the support, the encouragement, the resources that we need to be healthier. And actually those things, like withdrawing from others, where you see people and you're like, I ain't seen them in a while. Or, again, the more angry and irritable and so forth, the risk-taking, substance use, eating, tobacco use, all of these things can be symptoms of depression. They're not always, but they can be symptoms of depression. They can be things that you do. And the connection to stress is that often those things are what you do. You learn to do those things because they work for you. So as counterintuitive as it sounds, when you figure out that, when I'm stressed, I should eat that extra side, that larger set of fries. Or I should go get that extra piece of fried chicken, or I should go get that piece of cake, or go get that ice cream, or go get whatever other thing in whatever brown paper bag, or whatever other substance, whatever you do. You choose it, and then you try it one time, and if you feel better. Literally, if I were to measure your stress before you do that thing and after, your stress level will have gone down. So there's a functional part to it that we have to recognize and understand. The problem is that you can do that once in a while and it won't have long-term effects on your health. If that's the way if you cope with your stress in those ways over time, that is going to wear and tear on your body, that is going to wear and tear on your health, and you're going to see the adverse effects of that. Part of what we're trying to do here is create a program where you can find healthier ways of dealing with your stress. You can find better supports for dealing with your stress. You can find other ways of dealing with issues when they come up, and you can actually, because we don't often as men, particularly when we get to middle age and older years, we sometimes get more isolated. We don't actually have opportunities to get together and do this kind of fellowship. I mean, this is once a month. I don't know how often you all get together outside of here. But a lot of men don't have these kind of social outlets, and certainly don't have healthy outlets to get together and to actually support one another when it comes to their health and well-being. It's just not something that naturally we bring up in conversation. And usually when we get together to eat, it's usually not to eat healthy food. If I were to have if I were to invite you all over to a Super Bowl party and I served you, water and salads and so forth, y'all would start throwing that stuff at me. That's not what you expected. So we have to sort of recognize that part of there's a gender part, there's a cultural part of when men get together. There's things that we do that, again, that's not a bad thing. We want to celebrate. We do celebrate with things that make us feel good and that taste good. But we also recognize that we don't often get together in ways that bring us together to help promote our health, support our health, and do those things that will keep us here longer and keep us healthy longer. So that's what we're trying to do. The last thing I'll say is it's related to this, that health is not, again, what's a little different about me as a psychologist versus sort of if I was a physician. The way that I think about health is that health is only one part of what we're trying to do in our lives. You want to be healthy, but again, you want to be successful. And success, means very different things to different people. You want to be successful as a father. You want to be successful as a man of God. You want to be successful as a provider, whether you're just providing for yourself and you just want to be able to say, I kept the lights on and I'm able to eat what I want, or you got to provide for other people. But you're trying to be successful in other areas, and we tend to prioritize those things more than we do whether or not you get exercise in your free time, whether or not you make sure you get an adequate amount of sleep, whether or not you're actually choosing healthy foods to eat and so forth. We don't put the energy into those things as we could. And so part of this Mighty Men program is trying to figure out how we can support each other in doing that better work. So that's the context for what we're talking about. So Mighty Men is a program that I built over the years based on this premise and based on a lot of what I was just describing. It's for each man here to participate for 6 months. We may do 2 separate groups. We originally said it was going to be 12 to 18 months. Because of our grant period, it's not going to be that long. We're asking the church to only participate for probably about 9 months. And what we'll do is start one set of groups, hopefully, probably about a month from now. We'll see if we can put all these pieces together. Part of this is on our end that we have to work out and then get final agreements with you all and so forth. But assuming we can put all these pieces in place. But if for each of the men, what we're asking you to do is commit to 6 months. Now that's a long time, I get that. We did that on purpose. The reason is because we know that people are good at making short-term changes. We know that folks are real good. If I say, okay, we're going to the beach, we're going somewhere, and you got to put on a swimsuit, you got to put on your swim trunks and so forth, and you're like, uh-oh. So you may be good at sort of, okay, let me drop some pounds, let me do some push-ups, let me do something so I can look all right and not be embarrassed when I take my shirt off and get to the pool. So we can make those kind of short-term changes, or I need to wear a suit because we're going to have an event at the church and so forth, and I want to look real good. So we'll do those things that are short-term changes. How do you sustain that? How do you maintain that? How do you make that a lifestyle? That's the harder question. And so the reason it's 6 months is because, a month or 2 is just a change. When you're able to keep something consistent for 6 months or so, that's considered more of a lifestyle change. It's part of who you are. You've sort of you've made it, you've gone through different things you've had to deal with, different changes, you've traveled, you've had vacations, you've had breaks, you've done other stuff, so you've had different time periods that things have happened that you've had to adjust to how you're going to deal with that. And so that's why we did the 6 months. So we're asking you to try to do that. We picked 35 to 74, middle-aged and older men, again, because as counterintuitive as this may sound, men tend to be if you think about being younger adult, middle-aged, and older, whatever, however we want to get into defining those, the time period when you tend to be the least healthy is in middle age, because you tend to prioritize your family, starting a family, having kids, doing all that kind of stuff. Those are your prime work years, your time years of productivity, your time where you're focusing on doing all kind of stuff where you're trying to be the most active and so forth. When you're younger, it's usually all about you. When you're older, usually you're able to kind of try to relax a little bit, and you actually think about things a little differently. You tend to prioritize things a little differently. Middle age, we still try to struggle to figure out we're trying to juggle everything simultaneously. So we started there because that tends to be, if you look at things like the idea of men not achieving some of the age and years that many of you have here, it's because they did things over time where they died before the age of 60 or 70, and that's called premature mortality. And black men have the highest rates of premature mortality of really any group, certainly higher than black women and most groups of men. And so those are the kinds of things of why we chose those age groups and so forth. We're working with churches clearly because they do what we see here. For the age group of men that we're talking about, it's a middle-aged and older age group, we wanted a setting where not only is it a regular space to connect with men, but there's a culture of doing things that are focusing on your health and well-being very broadly. As if we focus on, say, barbershops, fraternities, lodges, and so forth, when you get together in a fraternity and a lodge, it's usually not for promoting the health, how can I say this gently? It's usually not for healthy purposes. It's usually that it's more of a social kind of thing, or if there's something positive that you're trying to do, it's for others. It's usually not to focus on your health, your healthy self. So the church is one of the places that is clearly anchored in a holistic approach to health, where you're trying to focus on people's health, spiritual, mental, physical health, all in one. And it's a foundation for that. And having your faith as the foundation for that, and having a particular denominational belief, having a religion, having those kind of things as the foundation is an important foundation for how men, actually, if you talk to black men about how they think about what it means to be healthy and what it means to be a man, it often is based in their faith. It often is something that they get out of the Bible when you talk to Christian men. And so that's why we chose to do this in that setting. We did take the name Mighty Men from different places in the Bible. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a biblical scholar, so I'm going to leave that to the experts. But clearly, we know that, this idea of mighty men of God is something that appears very explicitly in the Bible in multiple places. And we're trying to actually make sure that men stay healthy, mighty, and able to do the things that are important to them for these reasons that we're talked about. So it is, well, it's focused on, the funding came from the American Cancer Society, so I don't want to, not acknowledge that. But it is not just focused on cancer. It's not really about cancer. It's about preventing other things. If it prevents cancer, it'll prevent heart disease, it'll prevent diabetes, it'll prevent other stuff, and those things tend to co-occur. They tend to actually happen together. So if you're at risk for one, you often are at risk for the others. So part of the reason for choosing the name, the focus, and so forth is that. Again, we know that black men have some of the highest rates of all kinds of diseases, and the parts of what we can control are things about what we put in our bodies, how much, again, what do you do in your free time? Again, free time I know is limited for many of us, but what do you do during that time? Can you do things that are healthier? Can you do things can you make sure you get adequate sleep, as much as that seems like a given, or that's not a priority? We're actually finding that one of the biggest risk factors for things like heart disease is whether or not you actually get sleep and how much sleep you get. So those kind of basic things that your mama, grandmother, and all the people have told you about to try to do, We're basically just trying to take mama's lessons and grandma's lessons and get you to actually finally do, after all these years, what they had told you to do forever. Again, as you saw in the intro, and thank you again for the very kind intro, there are a lot of programs that are out there for African Americans, but are not necessarily tailored to men. And we know that from talking to men that, we don't want to do, for example, like group exercise. Like I don't want to, like men don't tend to, just as a concrete example. We've talked to men and asked, and some may like that, not saying, it's not a judgment, but we've talked to men overall, we don't tend to like to do something that feels like what used to be this day, aerobics. Like where you're getting in a group and doing kind of exercise all at the same time and doing, like men don't want to do that. You want to figure out what are the types of exercises that you can do, that you actually want to do, and that you would actually do on your own. And so part of this is giving you the tools and the resources and the opportunities to learn how do you do stuff, figure out what you like, first of all, and then how do we actually make sure you do it correctly so that you don't hurt yourself and that you will continue to do it. And so what are things, part of this is the process for you to figure out what do you actually like doing? What are you going to continue to do that you actually want to do? If I give you a bunch of exercises and you're just like, none of this, I don't like it, I don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it. And if I can't figure out something that's going to help you do that, that's what this is about. This is giving you the context and the tools to try different things, but to say, okay, well, let's figure out how we can continue to do that. We have to connect it to something deeper. We have to connect it to something that's more important, because there are going to be times, often and a lot of times, where you don't really want to do it, but you still got to do it. So you're never going to wake up and feel like, there are going to be days, certainly, where you're going to wake up and like, I don't really feel like exercising today. And you got to figure out how you're going to do that. Or I don't really feel like eating something healthy today. I'm not going to say that everything got to be healthy, but you at least want to get something healthy in there at some point today. Or something healthy in that part of the meal, something. Just give me something that's not brown, whether it's fried or meat or something. Like, can I have a little bit of color in there? Sprinkles, just some color in there just for, just to give it a little variety. But can you get something in there that, can we get some color on your plate? About how to do those kind of basic things. Not make this complicated. We're not calorie counting. We're not doing all that kind of crazy stuff. We just want you to learn basic principles of how to do things and then how to help support each other in doing that. And then, again, figure out, one of the ways that we talk about it basically is, what's your why? And again, for most people, being healthy, particularly for black men, being healthy is not about keeping your blood pressure under control, keeping your A1C, your blood sugars under control and so forth. We want to do those things, but I can't motivate you by saying, okay, let's keep your A1C under this. That's not usually going to motivate you past a certain point. If I say, okay, if you keep your blood pressure under control, you're going to have a lot more energy. You're going to feel a lot better. You're going to be able to actually be more than just a couch potato when you come home on the weekend. You're going to be able to actually interact with your kids and so forth. I'm not going to get any more, keep it PG and G, but you can do things better in other spaces of your life that are important to you. You can function in every other area of your life that's important to you at a higher, at better. And so if I tell you those things and connect the dots between those kind of things and health, you're more likely to do it because you see the purpose of it. You're able to function and focus at work better. Be able to do the kind of things that are important to you. That's what we have to connect these issues to. Again, we're asking the church to host. So what are we asking the church? I'm going to do, what are we asking the church? What are we asking interested men? And then close this out. So for the church, we're asking you to host the program. What that means is we'll do assessments. So we need to figure out where you are. So we'll do measurements of, again, your neck circumference, waist circumference, height, weight, body fat. So we'll actually do a thing that measures your body fat. So it sends a pulse up and down your body to look at where your body fat is, how much fat is particularly around your midsection. The reason the midsection fat is so important is because, one, that's where men, particularly under stress, that's where fat tends to go. Fat it distributes differently depending on why it's there, which is a whole weird another thing. But then also, the bigger risks for things like heart disease are because you have fat around your midsection. It actually increases your risk for things like heart disease, stroke, and so forth if you have fat here versus in other parts of your body. So we focus on that for that reason. We'll do other measures like blood pressure, blood sugar, and those kind of things as well. And then also ask you to do a survey to basically look at some of the factors that will help us understand how to better tailor information to you and what kinds of things are actually factoring in to the program. I think those are the basic things that we'll ask of you. Ask of the church is to host the assessments of those kinds of things. Again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a biblical scholar. I've been in church all my life, but I can't say I'm not going to step into your lane, Pastor. So they're different. We know that we're working across denominations. We're actually working across faith traditions. So, we want people to bring their faith, their whole selves to this particular program. There's space in the curriculum. There's space to bring in how, for men themselves and for the program, your denomination, your thoughts, your beliefs, and so forth. So you can bring in things like motivational quotes, scriptures, and so forth to help, again, center your conversation, to help you focus on your health and well-being in ways that otherwise there may not be spaces to connect those dots. We want you to recruit the 40 men. We came with 40 because we want them to be in groups of 10 so that you actually have an opportunity to work out with and actually connect with smaller groups of men. We know that, meeting in a large group like this is nice, but you usually don't have the opportunity to really connect with and, get to build relationships with men, so we want the groups to be smaller. And so we want to have 4 groups that are running within the church at the same time. Not literally at the same time of day, but like you want to be able to say, Deacon Proctor's group is, Saturday morning at 10, and then somebody else's group is, Tuesday afternoon, maybe you're retired, Tuesday afternoon group or something. And we want to be able to say, okay, well, which group got more steps? So y'all can, have a little friendly competition and so forth within there. But we want to be able to do those kind of things to hold each other accountable, to build some healthy competition in there in positive ways. We're asking the men themselves, again, to complete the screening. You need to be overweight or obese. It's a really low bar when it comes to black men in this day and age. No jokes there, because I'm right there with you. To attend the 3 assessment points, regardless of how much you participate over the 6 months, we still want to know whether or not you're feeling like this works for you. So we want you to come to the baseline at the beginning. We want you to come to the 3-month assessment to see how you're doing at the midpoint. We want you to come to the final assessment. And we're trying to get you to come to the weekly sessions in between there. So what you'll have is weekly sessions for the first 3 months, and then every other week for the next 3 months. And so that's how it's structured. So that's what we offer. It'll be here at the church at a time that you all agree with the trainer. There'll be a personal trainer that facilitates this. Hopefully it'll be Terrence who is here. Hopefully. But it'll be somebody else. If not him, it'll be another person who's, there you are. Certified personal trainer. We want somebody who's a certified personal trainer who can help you do stuff, knows how to do it, and that can continue to be a resource to you as a church, but can help you understand how to do it. They're, of course, great at motivation. And so we want the people to teach you, again, how to do it, what to do, how to adapt it if you have different limitations in terms of that you can't do certain things or just starting out. If you haven't been active in a while, we can't have you just doing all kind of crazy stuff that he can do. But we want you to be able to, he will help you adjust and adapt to what you can do. If you can't do 50 push-ups starting out, okay, so what can you do? Can you modify that to be able to do something else? Can you modify some other kinds of activities to do that? So the small group sessions will be here again, weekly sessions for the first 3 months, every other week for the second 3 months. We're going to give you a Fitbit and a scale. The scale hopefully will sync to the Fitbit. The Fitbit is to basically help you track your steps, activity, weight, and so forth. You can actually monitor and create a meal plan on the Fitbit app, and then monitor that on the app that's on the phone. And you get to keep the Fitbit and the scale, regardless of, again, how much you participate in something that's just part of the program. You'll also get weekly health messages and goal tracking messages. So we want you to be able to track what you're doing in those particular groups and so forth. In both groups, and you'll get those regardless. The hope is that it will help to increase the ability of the church to create and again, support men in creating healthier lifestyles. Again, long after the program is gone, because you'd actually have a group of men who know how to do this, how to support each other, this is important to them. And so you'll have the resources, the equipment. I should have said more explicitly. There's a small amount of equipment that we'll give, so it's exercise mats, dumbbells, kettlebells, I think Bosu ball, which is like a weighted, it's weighted on one side, and it helps you do stretching and other types of activity to help with flexibility and with other types of things like
balance.
Balance, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. But it helps with those kind of, the muscles that help you, that are support muscles for other things, and with joints and so forth. Thank you. And so there resistance bands, and there are a couple other things that I'm probably forgetting. But it's basically a set of equipment that you'll have here at the church that will be, again, for the church. You all will keep it as a church. And that will be something that, again, you will have here. So most people will say, well, I can't exercise because I don't know where to go. I can't afford it. I can't afford to go with my own personal trainer. I can't afford to get, I can't afford to go to a gym or pay for a gym membership. Well, you won't have that excuse because you'll have all that stuff here. And even after the program is over, or even, while the program is running, the stuff will be here. You all can work out, how people will have access to it. And so, again, it's not, the weekly sessions will be there, but the equipment will be here, so you can do it. Hopefully there will be groups of men who say, okay, well, I'm going to come back. Even though my session is Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to come also on Thursday, and we're going to have, I'm going to work out with just the equipment. Or there will be small groups of men who say, okay, well, let's meet up and do that. But those kind of things will be here as resources, so you can do that for yourselves. You don't have to wait on the session. We want you to create this again. What are you going to do for yourself? And we want you to do it, and this does not need to be prescriptive. Give you the knowledge, skills, and resources to support the church, and to create a sustainable health program for men at the church. Hopefully, there are other ways. We tend to focus on weight. We're measuring weight, but we're not really obsessed with weight in this particular program, because there are multiple ways that you can be healthier that have nothing to do with your weight. Weight is a more crude measure. Part of this will hopefully you'll feel better. To you yourself, you'll look better. Hopefully other people see it too, but maybe not. But you should feel better. You should have more energy. You should be able to focus more. These kind of things that help you in your daily life will be the things that will hopefully change. And oh, by the way, your doctors will be happier with you, because hopefully those things will also track in the same direction. So the next steps are basically just to, we'll have follow-up meetings to make sure I can answer whatever questions. I'll certainly take whatever questions you have today, but I want to make sure that we get all your questions answered. We need to make sure we have a formal agreement between us, and make sure that we're all on one page and on one accord to have an agreement between us and the church about what we're doing. Then we want to spread the word and have men actually start to sign up. We do have a sign-up sheet here. It's not signed up officially because we can't officially do that yet, but at least if you're interested, we'll take your names and so forth, so we have some sheets here for that. And again, we want to get at least 40 men screened, kick the program off, and then get to the assessment and get to helping you live healthier lives.